Hello and welcome back to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We are continuing our track Zare from 2012 and we are looking at the bass line today, and I've already kind of got the bass line sorted. It took a lot of tweaking to get the right sounds and it would have made for a very long video, but I'm still going to walk through everything that I have done to achieve the sound that we have right now playing, and then we'll show you how it works with the previous video topic, which was the synths and getting all that working right. So first things first, I'm going to cover a tweak that I did on the synths just to update you on what happened. If you haven't already seen the video is on screen now. You can go and click there and watch that before this one to get some context. So on the synths here, so if we go into the synths and play those, everything's a little bit sharper now, and that is down to the fact that all of the leads are now routed through to the melodies bus. There was a couple that weren't routed through, which caused a few issues because I was trying to mix it down thinking I soloed this and I thought, well, where's all the other elements gone? And I forgot to route this one and this one here. So this Spire one that we added in last, if we just solo that on its own, has got a lot of power. And the reason that I changed this one, if we can head into that one. So we used Hypercove, but I've turned down the release. It used to be here and it was quite smooth, and I wanted to keep the staccato feel to the melody, so I just reduced that and routed it through to the melodies. And as you can see, we just did some filter adjustments here, EQ adjustments, sorry. We've boosted up here, we've just cut some of these kind of really trebly top ends and just removed some of the bass area that I didn't want. Okay, so that covers the synths and they were routed through to the melodies section here. And you can see there is no processing whatsoever on there. But now let's move on to the basses. And for those that are wondering why I haven't extended it across here, I'm just working on this 8-bar section, and then we will kind of replicate it through the rest of the track. And we're not necessarily going to keep the same structure, but we'll see how it goes. So on the basses. That is the sound that we have. And first things first, we had a lot of Nexus content in there and it just wasn't doing it for me because I couldn't tweak it enough just to get it how I wanted it. So it was a big waste of time trying to get the Nexus content working. So first things first, let's look at this bass here. So these are all coming from my Spire preset. The link is always in the description down below to the Spire preset, but we're using Fictitious. And this one is, it was more for an offbeat bass, but this works with this pattern, as you can see here. And what that is doing is adding the warmth underneath where the Nexus bass actually took place, which was called main bass originally. And on its own, it didn't seem to work, so then it's been laid up with this bass, which isn't a bass. So let's just have a quick look at that one. This is actually a lead called Pendle. And it adds that little bit of extra kind of character to the sound because that's very cut off and it's very in the sub area, whereas this one kind of takes priority over it but is supported by this lower bass. Now this one needs renaming to Fictitious, and we'll put sub so we know it's a sub, and then lead bass Pendle is this one. So those first two basses are kind of the drive force of the track. So let's listen to it with the kick. So bearing in mind we haven't processed the kick yet before anybody gets on the keyboard. And then we have this bass which we've nothing done with. So for now, these basses I'm just going to put none. Just because we're working on an old project, this is not usually how I'd work. I just delete it, but I just want to keep it just in case we want to do something with that. Let's colour these as well so we know the basses. Right, so moving on to this bass, this is another Spire preset from my Trance pack, and this is Thornton. Now I wanted some mid-range drive that give that metallic sound, and this cut the mix straight away. It's an FM sound, and it gives the character back into what is sort of just a thick, I'm going to say a thick mess, but more like a just really thick low end with no definition. So this starts to add this back in. And then we have another bass here from Spire again, and this one's called Too Hard, and again kind of reinforces the first metallic bass. And on its own is that, and you can see these two patterns are very similar but very different at the same time, so that's a really silly thing to say, but it fills in the gaps that the other bass doesn't do, as you can see with the lighter colours. That's the overlay of the other bass, and they work quite nicely hand in hand. Okay, so let's name that none, save, and at the moment this was sub bass, but we are going to say none because we're not using Vanguard at the moment. Now that seems to cover the bass line pretty well. I'm happy with how that sounds. There's going to be final tweaks once I kind of get all the track working together again. That's probably the biggest struggle, trying to work out an old project and how a process sounds way back then. So at the moment, it's all a little bit off balance, so let's just have a quick listen to that. As you'll hear, the kick's quite distant, the synths are quite up front, and the bass just seems to be rumbling down below. And not to mention those hat loops are pretty high on the trebly side. Okay, so we've got the bass sorted. Let's attack the percussion section, and then we will tackle the next video mixing the sound up so we can start getting these layers nicely fitting together and make it sound more like a professional track. So let's have a listen to this. We've got a cymbal here as well, a crash cymbal, which I've muted because of the kind of repetition. So now we could just do 4, yeah, and 4 again, and it won't sound too repetitive now. Okay, so let's go to the mix and see what's happening. So the first things first, on the cymbals here, these were linked channels for whatever reason, and also they were set at -20 or somewhere around there. And obviously applying this gain up here would just, they didn't exist, you couldn't hear them. So I kind of upped the levels on there and then looked at the hats, and I'd also gain staged that to -12, which I don't do with my outputs. So that brought it all back up to level, and here we are with the final thing. So we've got that muted, we've got nothing on these channels. Let's just check on here, we've got no EQs or anything, because I tend not to use EQs built in. And that is the sound that we have. So it's all a little bit tinny, is probably the word I'd use. So I'm going to load up another Pro Q3. And as you may have heard, and what I mentioned before, this, deleting some of these is the quirk between old projects and new projects. This will have been done in Cubase 5, no doubt, or Cubase 6. And we're obviously on Cubase 10 here. And as soon as I go in there and delete it, no matter if I just click and backspace that to delete it or go in here and select no effect, it just crashes the project and shuts it down. So importance to save, because you don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm just going to leave that there so we can continue. So lots of top end on here. So I want to maintain some of that little bit of low detail that's in there from the percussion. I'm just going to kind of roll it off like that so we're following the shape of the sound. And I'm going to do the same here with -6. Just till it's still crispy, but it's not really making your ears bleed. So this is the difference. Okay, and then that gives us room to do a little bit of boosting here. So it's a pretty well put together set of loops already. But with this being a bus, I just want to kind of tailor the sound a little bit more. So I'm going to set this to 6 dB, so I'm not boosting too much. You can see then I'm working in plus 1 dB at a time. I'm just going to boost the mid detail here. So I'm just listening for the subtle details. This is filling out the mid-range area of this, so it doesn't sound like it's too tinny and operational just in this area here, even though we've only made the cut here. When you start boosting, you kind of prioritize the sounds to your ears, and this becomes the priority in your hearing range, even though this is here and it sounds like you've actually cut it away. So just be careful with that and just balance them out. There's different techniques you can use. I've just added some mid detail in there just to balance it up for now. And boosting here takes away the whole perception of this bit being cut, because we've boosted those frequencies and used that to our advantage. So prior to that, it just had too much crispiness on the top end, and once that gets really loud, it's just horrible white noise, and you just don't want that in your track, conflicting with the synths and the pads, everything. So that just gives it a little bit more presence in the mix there. So let's just listen to that with the kick drum. And with these being Vengeance loops, they're already pretty good. Don't be afraid to just kind of plonk them in and just tweak them slightly to get them sounding nice. So let's put the bass in there. We've got a lot of work to do on the bass yet to get that to fit. But it's sounding pretty good already. Let's put the melody in there. Okay, so they're not clashing now, whereas before, there's a lot of high end creeping through on that mix. And now it's there, but it's controlled and just stops it attacking your ears too much. Alright, so there we are. We've tamed, and as you can see, I haven't done too much to the hat track there. We've just put that on, and what I'll do is once everything's balanced, then we can start getting a little bit creative and just using a few plugins to kind of enhance the sound there. So we've got everything in place. We've got the kick. It's operating at minus 7.8 at the moment, which we could do with putting up a little bit. We've got a FabFilter Pro Q3 there. That is to obviously route it through to the other Pro Qs. This reduction here is obviously giving us some jip. So let's just get that to minus 6. Okay, so we just boosted there by just shy of 2 dB. It'll probably creep over minus 6 again, but we can balance it out. So we can hear where the kick, I'm now going to build the track around that and kind of mix it down. There's a few things I want to do with the kick. Probably swap that out as well for a bit of a stabbier kick. So I'll do some research and I'll show you in the next video. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry about Wednesday's video, that was prior. A lot of work going on, and I just didn't feel the video that I'd done was going to be good enough for you guys to watch, because it just wasn't quite there on the content. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments down below, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, because there are 3 videos per week for you to learn and share with others. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.